Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, I know you've all heard your fair share of Klitsch high school romance stories, the popular athlete, the quiet girl, the predictable happy ending. But today's story, this one hits entirely different. Imagine having your entire life, every single second, color-coded and planned out, only for a freak accident in a crowded hallway to throw you directly into the orbit of the most brooding, untouchable guy in school. It's intense, it's romantic, and honestly, it changed everything. So, dim the lights, grab your headphones, and let's dive straight into it. You want to know the exact moment my perfectly structured, straight-a life completely derailed? It wasn't when I got a B on a calculus pop quiz. And it wasn't when my alarm failed on the morning of junior year finals. No, it was a random Tuesday in mid-October at Oakridge High, right under the dim, buzzing fluorescent lights of hallway B, right next to the dented locker number 114. The air smelled like vanilla body spray, damp raincoats, and the distinct scent of cafeteria pizza. I was rushing, trying to balance 3 heavy AP textbooks, a leaking iced caramel macchiato, and my absolute dignity, when the universe decided to play its absolute favorite game, total chaos. I was staring down at my phone, frantically checking my Google Calendar, completely oblivious to the world around me. My dark hair was tied up in a messy claw clip, a few loose strands framing my face, and I was wearing this vintage oversized sweater that I'd stolen from my older brother. I was the textbook definition of in a rush. Do not perceive me. But then, I rounded the corner near the gym entrance to fast. My sneaker caught the edge of a wet floor sign. My grip slipped on my textbooks, and time literally slowed down. I felt myself tilting forward, waiting for the inevitable, embarrassing crash against the linoleum floor. I closed my eyes, bracing for the impact, expecting the sound of books slamming and people laughing. But the impact never came. Instead, a strong, solid hand caught my forearm, stabilizing me instantly, while another hand effortlessly swept under the falling pile of my textbooks, catching them mid-air like it was nothing. The iced coffee, unfortunately, didn't make it. It splashed right across the pristine white sneakers of whoever had just saved my life. "Whoa, easy there. I got you," a voice said. It was low, slightly raspy, and carried that effortless, calm confidence that you only hear from guys who actually have their life together. My eyes snapped open. I was looking directly at a chest covered in a dark green varsity jacket. I blinked, my heart hammering against my ribs, not just from the near fall, but from the sudden, overwhelming proximity. I looked up, and my breath caught straight in my throat. It was Ethan Vance. Now, if you don't go to Oakridge High, let me break it down for you. Ethan wasn't just the varsity baseball captain. He was the guy who sat in the back of my AP literature class, staring out the window with this brooding, mysterious vibe that drove literally everyone insane. He had those intense, sharp hazel eyes that seemed to look right through you, messy, dark brown hair that always looked perfectly unstyled, and a sharp jawline that belonged on a billboard in Times Square. He was quiet, incredibly, fiercely protective of his friends, and completely out of my league. I was the quiet, ambitious girl who spent her weekends volunteering at the library and organizing her notes by color coordinated highlighters. We existed in 2 completely different solar systems. Until now. "Are you okay?" he asked, his hazel eyes locking onto mine, scanning my face with a genuine look of concern. He didn't let go of my arm immediately. His grip was warm, sending this electric, tingling jolt straight up my spine. My skin felt like it was on fire where his fingers touched me. Yeah, I'm so sorry," I stammered, my voice sounding way breathier than I wanted it to. I looked down and saw the puddle of caramel macchiato dripping off his left shoe. "Oh, my God, your shoes. I am so sorry, Ethan. I'm a literal walking disaster today." A slow, devastating smirk crept onto his lips, revealing a faint dimple on his right cheek that I had never noticed before. It completely changed his brooding expression into something incredibly warm, something dangerously attractive. "Don't worry about it," Ethan murmured, finally letting go of my arm, though his fingers lingered for a fraction of a second too long, brushing against my wrist. He handed my textbooks back to me, his hand brushing mine again. and that same electric shock went straight through me. The shoes needed some character anyway. But you need to watch where you're going, princess. Not everyone is going to be there to catch you. Princess. The word echoed in my head, loud and dangerous. Nobody called me that. My friends called me by my name. My teachers called me reliable. But the way the word rolled off his tongue, low and familiar, made my stomach do a violent flip. Before I could even process a response, before my brain could formulate a single coherent English sentence, the warning bell blared through the speakers, echoing off the lockers. "See you in lit," Ethan said, giving me one last, lingering look that felt like a physical touch, before turning on his heel and walking down the hallway, his hands shoved deep into his varsity jacket pockets, completely unfazed by the chaos he had just left trailing in his wake. I stood there, frozen, clutching my textbooks to my chest like a shield, my heart racing so fast I thought it might actually burst out of my ribs. My face was burning hot, a deep crimson blush spreading from my neck all the way to my cheeks. I took a deep, shaky breath, trying to steady my racing pulse. "Get a grip," I told myself. It was just a hallway collision. He was just being polite. But as I walked toward my next class, the feeling of his warm hand on my arm refused to fade. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't focus on a single word the teacher was saying. All I could see was the memory of those hazel eyes. And all I could wonder was if he could hear my heart beating from across the room. I spent the rest of that class staring completely blankly at the whiteboard, my fingers restlessly tracing the edge of the notebook page where I was supposed to be taking notes on The Great Gatsby. But honestly, my own reality had suddenly become way more overwhelming than any classic novel. Every single time Ethan shifted in his seat 3 rows away, the fabric of his varsity jacket rustling slightly, my eyes would automatically dart over to him. And just once he turned his head at the exact same moment, catching me red-handed. Instead of looking away, he just held my gaze for 3 agonizing, beautiful seconds, a slow, knowing smirk playing on his lips before he turned back to the teacher. My heart did another violent flip, and I had to literally bite the inside of my cheek to keep from letting out a visible gasp. By the time the final bell of the day rang, signaling the absolute freedom of a Friday afternoon, the hallway exploded into a chaotic sea of slamming locker doors, shouting teenagers, and the frantic rustling of backpacks. I walked out of the main entrance, the cool autumn air hitting my face, instantly making me shiver inside my oversized sweater. The sky was overcast, heavy gray clouds rolling over the football field, hinting that the predicted weekend rainstorm was coming in early. I started walking down the concrete steps toward the parking lot, intending to head straight to the library to hide away and study for the next 3 hours, completely ready to block out the weird tension of the day. "Hey, princess, wait up." The voice cut through the shouting of the crowd behind me, clear as a bell, and my boots instantly glued themselves to the pavement. I turned around, my heart immediately jumping into my throat. Ethan was jogging down the steps, his backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder, his dark brown hair slightly tousled by the wind. He stopped right in front of me, so close that I could smell him, a heady mix of clean laundry detergent, expensive cologne, and a faint hint of rain. "Are you walking to the library?" he asked, tilting his head, his hazel eyes searching mine with an intensity that made me feel completely exposed. "Yeah, I usually study there on Fridays," I stammered, cursing myself internally for sounding so incredibly nervous around him. "Why?" Ethan looked down at my hands, which were tightly clutching my strap, and then looked back up, his expression softening into something incredibly intense. "The sky is about to open up, and you don't even have an umbrella. Plus, I owe you an apology for making you spill your coffee earlier. Let me drive you." My brain completely short-circuited. Ethan Vance was offering me a ride, the guy who half the school was intimidated by, the guy who normally drove off in his black, sleek sports car alone or with the baseball team, was standing here in the cold, asking me to get into his car. "Oh no, it's fine really. It's just a 10-minute walk. I can make it before it starts pouring," I said quickly, my defense mechanism instantly kicking in. I wasn't used to this. I wasn't used to guys like him paying attention to me, and frankly, it terrified me because of how much I already wanted to say yes. Just as the words left my mouth, a loud crack of thunder echoed across the sky, and within 2 seconds, a massive, freezing downpour slammed into the parking lot. In an instant, the loose strands of my hair were soaked, sticking to my cheeks, and my sweater started absorbing the water like a sponge. Ethan let out a soft, low laugh, the sound vibrating in his chest. Before I could even protest, he grabbed my hand, his palm warm and solid against my freezing fingers, and started pulling me gently toward his car. Yeah, you're definitely not walking. Come on. The feeling of his hand wrapped securely around mine sent a massive wave of heat straight through my body, completely making me forget about the freezing rain pelting down on us. We ran through the downpour, laughing breathlessly, until he unlocked his car and pulled open the passenger door for me, shielding me with his own body from the rain as I scrambled inside. He slammed the door shut and jogged around to the driver's side, sliding in next to me, bringing the smell of the fresh rain inside the enclosed, warm space of the car. The interior of his car was pristine black leather seats, the soft glow of the dashboard lights, and a quiet lo-fi track playing softly from the speakers. It felt like an entirely different world, completely cut off from the rest of Oakridge High. Ethan reached into the back seat, grabbed a clean, gray hoodie, and handed it to me. Here, take that sweater off, you're shivering. I'm fine really, I whispered, my voice trembling slightly, not just from the cold, but from the sheer intimacy of being trapped in a small space with him. You're not fine, your hands are shaking, Ethan said softly, his voice dropping an octave. He reached over, his fingers gently brushing against my jawline as he tucked a wet strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was incredibly gentle, contrasting completely with his athletic, tough exterior. His thumb lingered on my cheekbone for a second, his gaze dropping to my lips before snapping back to my eyes. Change into the hoodie. I'll turn around. He actually turned his head, staring out his side window into the sheets of rain, blurring the glass. My heart was pounding so hard against my ribs I was convinced he could hear it. With trembling fingers, I pulled the wet, heavy sweater over my head and quickly slid his gray hoodie on. It was huge on me, swallowing my hands completely, and it smelled entirely like him. It felt like a warm, protective embrace. Okay, I whispered, my face burning red. Ethan turned back around, his eyes scanning me in his clothes. A slow, intense look entered his hazel eyes, something dark and deeply romantic that made my stomach do absolute backflips. He reached over, grabbing the edge of the oversized sleeve, gently rolling it up so my hand was visible. His fingers lingered on my wrist, his thumb rubbing small, slow circles against my pulse point, which was racing at a dangerous speed. Looks better on you than it does on me, he murmured, his voice incredibly low, his face just inches from mine now. The rainy afternoon darkness outside made the inside of the car feel completely isolated, like we were the only two people left in the world. He didn't move away. Instead, he leaned in just a fraction closer, his breath warm against my lips. To be honest, I've been wanting to talk to you for months. The coffee thing today, just an excuse. My heart completely stopped. The words hung in the warm, enclosed air of the car, competing only with the steady, rhythmic drumming of the heavy rain against the windshield. He had been wanting to talk to you for months. My brain refused to process it. I stared at him, my lips parted slightly, my eyes wide as I tried to look for any sign that he was joking, that this was some elaborate varsity prank. But there was no smirk on his face anymore. His hazel eyes were intensely serious, dark with an emotion that made my entire body feel like it was vibrating. Months, I finally managed to whisper, my voice barely audible over the soft lo-fi music playing in the background. Ethan, you don't even know me. We've never spoken a single word until today. That's my fault, he said, his voice dropping to a low, rough murmur. He didn't let go of my wrist. Instead, his thumb continued its slow, tortuous circles against my skin, sending waves of heat straight to my core. I watched you every single day in lit class. I watched how you get this tiny little line between your eyebrows when you're focusing really hard on an essay. I watched how you bite the end of your pen when you're nervous, and how your face completely lights up whenever you talk about something you're actually passionate about. You're real. Everyone else in this place is just wearing a mask, trying to be someone they're not. But you're completely yourself. And it drives me crazy that I didn't have the guts to just come up and say hi. Hearing him say those things, realizing he had noticed the tiniest, most obscure details about my existence while I thought I was completely invisible to him. Sent a literal shockwave through my chest. A deep, breathless warmth bloomed behind my ribs. The space between us felt impossibly small now. I could see the golden flecks in his hazel eyes, the slight dampness of his dark hair sticking to his forehead, and the way his chest rose and fell with his heavy, uneven breathing. I thought you hated me, I confessed softly, the truth slipping out before my filters could stop it. You always looked so brooding and distant in the back of the classroom. Whenever I looked over, you'd just stare out the window. Ethan let out a short, breathy laugh, a gorgeous smile breaking through his serious expression. He leaned his head back against his leather seat, his eyes never leaving my face. I wasn't staring out the window, princess. I was staring at your reflection in the glass. I was trying to figure out how a girl like you, so smart, so beautiful, so completely out of my league, could exist in the same room as me without even realizing the effect she has. Beautiful. He thought I was beautiful. Before I could even formulate a thought, Ethan leaned back in, closing the distance between us until I could feel the absolute heat radiating from his body. He lifted his free hand, his knuckles gently brushing down the line of my cheek, trailing a path of fire across my skin. His gaze dropped to my lips, lingering there for an agonizingly long second, and my breath hitched. My entire body was screaming for him to close the remaining 2 inches between us. Every instinct I had, every rule I had ever set for myself about staying focused and avoiding high school drama, completely melted away under the intensity of his touch. Ethan, I whispered, a plea and a question all wrapped into one. Can I take you somewhere? He asked, his voice rough, his eyes shifting back up to meet mine. Not the library. Somewhere where it's just us. I want to know everything about you. I want to know what makes you laugh, what makes you angry, what your dreams are. Just give me one afternoon. The sincerity in his eyes was completely undoing me. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening slightly around the soft fabric of his oversized gray hoodie that still smelled overwhelmingly like him. I knew that stepping across this line meant there was no going back. My quiet, predictable life would never be the same again. But looking at him, feeling the rapid, heavy beat of his pulse beneath my fingertips, where my hand had naturally rested against his arm, I realized I didn't want my old life anymore. Not if it meant a life without him in it. Okay, I whispered, a small, breathless smile breaking across my face. Take me somewhere. Ethan's eyes flared with a sudden, brilliant heat, the corner of his mouth tucked into that devastating dimple, and he finally let go of my wrist, only to slide his fingers down, interlocking them securely with mine. He squeezed my hand tightly, a silent promise, before shifting the car into drive. As the car pulled out of the dark, rain-soaked school parking lot and onto the empty main road, the world outside faded into a blurry gray streak of rain and trees. Inside, the heat was overwhelming, and as he kept his right hand resting on the center console, firmly holding onto mine, I knew my junior year had just changed forever. We drove for about 20 minutes, the tires humming against the wet asphalt while the rain continued to sheet down, turning the afternoon into a cozy, dark twilight. Ethan didn't look back at the school once. He kept one hand firmly on the steering wheel and his other hand completely locked with mine on the center console, his thumb casually rubbing the back of my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. I kept looking out the window, trying to calm the butterflies, doing absolute gymnastics in my stomach. But every time I caught our reflection in the dark glass, me engulfed in his massive, gray varsity hoodie, our fingers intertwined, my heart did a violent, happy stutter. Eventually, the smooth main road gave way to a gravel path, the stones crunching under his tires. We were climbing up toward Miller's Ridge, the highest overlook point in the town, a place where people usually came at night to look at the city lights. But right now, in the middle of a massive autumn storm, it was completely deserted. He parked the car right at the edge of the cliff, overlooking the misty valley and the distant, blurred, blinking lights of our small town below. He turned off the engine. The sudden silence in the car was heavy, filled only with the loud, rhythmic drumming of the rain on the roof and the sound of our own breathing. Ethan turned in his seat to face me, resting his elbow on the steering wheel, his eyes scanning my face with that same intense, hungry curiosity. "We're here," he murmured. "No distractions, no baseball team, no AP calculus, no expectations. Just you and me." I turned to face him too, pulling my knees up onto the leather seat, tucking the giant hoodie around my legs. Why here, Ethan? Because when I'm up here, the rest of the world feels small, he said softly, his voice incredibly deep in the quiet car. And honestly, for the past few weeks, everything in my life has felt completely overwhelming. The pressure from my dad about scouts, the grades, the constant noise. But when I look at you in class, everything just goes quiet. I wanted to bring you to the one place where I actually feel like I can breathe. My heart melted right then and there. The tough, unbothered Varsity captain image he wore like armor in the school hallways was completely gone. Sitting here in the dim light of the storm, he looked vulnerable, raw, and so incredibly handsome it made my throat tight. You could have talked to me anytime, I said softly, reaching out without even thinking. My fingers brushed against the cuff of his jacket. I don't bite, you know. Yeah, but you're intimidating, he said, a soft, breathless laugh escaping his lips. He reached up, capturing my hand before I could pull it back, bringing my knuckles up to his lips, pressing a soft, warm kiss against my skin. The contact made a literal shockwave of electricity shoot straight through my arm, making me gasp softly. He held my hand right there against his jaw, his hazel eyes burning into mine. You're so smart, so focused. I was terrified that if I talked to you, you'd just look at me and see another dumb athlete who has nothing going for him but a sport. That's not what I see at all, I whispered, my voice trembling as I looked into his eyes, feeling the absolute sincerity radiating from him. I leaned forward just a little bit, closing the distance between our seats, my heart hammering like a trapped bird. I see someone who cares so much it scares him. I see you, Ethan. His breath hitched. The hazel in his eyes darkened into a deep, stormy green, and before I could even process his movement, he reached out, his hand sliding behind my neck, his fingers tangling into the loose, damp strands of my hair. He pulled me gently but firmly across the center console toward him. God, you have no idea what you do to me, he growled softly. And then, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a rushed, clumsy high school kiss. It was slow, incredibly deep, and completely breathless. His lips were warm and soft against mine, moving with a desperate, lingering intensity that made my entire universe completely collapse. I let out a soft sigh against his mouth, my hands automatically flying up to grip the lapels of his jacket, pulling him even closer until there was absolutely no space left between us. The scent of rain, cedarwood, and pure desire filled my senses. He groaned softly, his grip on the back of my neck tightening as he tilted his head, deepening the kiss, his thumb sweeping along my jawline, tracing a path of pure fire. The windows of the car completely fogged up, shutting out the entire world, locking us inside our own private, heated sanctuary while the rain roared outside. When he finally pulled away, just a fraction of an inch, his forehead rested against mine, both of us panting for air, our lips tingling and swollen. He didn't let go of me. His hands stayed cradling my face like I was the most precious thing he had ever held in his entire life. Don't go back to the library, he whispered against my lips, his voice completely raw. Stay with me. Let me take care of you. I couldn't have walked away even if I wanted to. Looking into his eyes, hearing the rough edge in his voice, my entire world had narrowed down to this exact car, this exact storm, and this guy who held me like I was his entire universe. I'm staying, I whispered back, my lips brushing against his as I spoke. A breathtaking smile broke across Ethan's face, a mixture of pure relief and intense happiness. He didn't let go of me immediately. He pressed one more soft, lingering kiss to the corner of my mouth, then gently helped me adjust back into the passenger seat, though he kept his arm draped over the back of my headrest, his fingers idly playing with the ends of my hair. For the next 2 hours, the storm raged outside, but inside, the world was completely still. We talked about everything. I told him about the overwhelming pressure of trying to get into an Ivy League school, how I sometimes felt like a robot programmed to just get straight A's, and how terrified I was of failing. Ethan listened like every single word I said was gold. He didn't dismiss my anxieties. Instead, he squeezed my hand, telling me that my mind was the most beautiful thing about me, but that I deserved to breathe too. And then he opened up. He told me about his father, a former minor league baseball player who lived vicariously through Ethan, counting every strikeout, every run, treating him more like an investment than a son. Sometimes I just want to drop the bat and walk off the field, Ethan admitted, his gaze drifting out to the rain-streaked window. But then I think about the scholarships, the future, and I feel trapped. You're not trapped, Ethan, I said softly, reaching up to gently turn his face back to mine. My fingers rested against his warm cheek. You're incredibly talented, but baseball is just something you do. It's not who you are. The guy sitting right here in front of me, he's worth so much more than a sports scout's approval. Ethan stared at me, his hazel eyes swirling with an emotion so raw and intense it made my throat tight. He grabbed my hand from his cheek, kissed the center of my palm, and pulled me back toward him. Nobody has ever said that to me, he whispered, his voice cracking slightly. By the time the rain finally began to clear, giving way to a stunning, deep violet twilight sky over the valley, everything had shifted between us. We weren't the popular baseball captain and the quiet nerd anymore. We were just Ethan and me. He drove me home as the streetlights started flickering on, the wet roads reflecting the neon signs of the town. When he pulled up to the curb outside my house, he turned off the engine and looked at me, a sudden wave of vulnerability washing over his face. So, he murmured, his fingers wrapping around mine one last time. Monday morning. Are we going back to pretending we don't know each other in hallway B? I laughed softly, leaning across the console. I grabbed the collar of his varsity jacket, pulling him down into a deep, slow, reassuring kiss that left both of us breathless. When I pulled back, I gave him a small, playful smirk. Not a chance, Vance, I whispered, opening the passenger door. You still owe me a replacement caramel macchiato. See you on Monday. I slid out of the car, running up the porch steps in his massive gray hoodie, which I had absolutely no intention of giving back. As I reached the front door, I turned around and saw him leaning across the passenger seat, watching me through the open window with that devastating, dimpled smile. I knew high school was about to get a lot more complicated, and my perfect schedule was completely ruined. But as I waved goodbye and stepped inside, my heart was lighter than it had ever been. And after that day, walking down hallway B was never the same again. It's crazy how one rainy afternoon can completely rewrite your entire universe. If you guys love the vibe of this story and want to know what happens on Monday morning, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you want a part 2. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next story.